All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Global Card Collectors. I'm Justin, again, sitting in for Will and John. The first episode I hosted must not have been a complete disaster because they've invited me back for a second. And for this one, it's an episode that I have been excited to do for a while. We have a guest tonight who, in terms of collecting, he'll talk to you a little bit about it, but does a lot of 90s basketball inserts and stuff that, I know has been talked about on the channel before and is, always pretty popular, and he's got some cool stuff. And the cool thing about this guest is I've known him for about 35 years or however old he is actually, we have my brother with us tonight, Nate, who he'll tell you a little bit about how he got back into it, but we got in pretty close to the same time, and we've done some big shows together, nationals, and despite that, we collect completely differently. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of get him on here, talk a little bit about how he collects and some of the things that he does to fund his collection and just the things that he chases and targets and all that good stuff. So figure I will turn it over to him and let him tell you a little bit about, first of all, what he collects. But, good to finally get you on here, man. Yeah. So I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, no, I'm fired up to be on here. Obviously seen the episodes and, like you said, we'll get into when I started collecting, but I mean, a big piece is when we were growing up and then getting back into the hobby together and the shows and really learning about how diverse the hobby is. So I'm excited to be on here and talk through a lot of this stuff and see where the episode goes.
Yeah, man, for sure. Now, one thing that's going to be, kind of amusing is if he gets into any of those stories about how I used to rip him off when we were kids. I'm 5.5 years older. So there were all sorts of times where we'd have trade sessions. And I remember one, I think I traded him some cards that looked like they'd been eaten by a dog of players nobody'd heard of for a Kenny Lofton rookie, which is probably worth a total of $1 at this point anyway, but we didn't know that in 1995 or whatever it was. So yeah, I'll leave out the parts where he ran to mom and dad about the how he got ripped off and I had to give it back to him. I legitimately tried to find that Kenny Lofton card. I wondered if it was in any of my boxes, and it's lost to time.
Of course, yeah, it's now. Felt like
it. But all that said, and you talked a little bit about it, but how did you first get into collecting, and more importantly, how did you get back in the hobby now?
Yeah, so growing up, all my friends, I mean, as far back as I can remember, they collected. You guys collected, you and your friends. And I think me and my friends just kind of saw that and were like, that's awesome. We were big into sports, obviously. So, I don't think I'm that old until I think back to some of the stories. And it sounds like an old man. Like we'd hop on our bikes. We'd drive around the corner. There was the stadium card shop. And we'd go in. We'd probably go in with $5. We'd get some packs of cards, come back, open them. I mean, looking back, who knows what I probably didn't even know what was a good card. We didn't know all that much about it. We were trying to go through the Beckett books, which even sound to make old too. But see if these are worth anything. But yeah, that's how it was. It was, I think you and your friends were into it. So me and my friends followed along, and then it was just always something fun to do. It was always something to chase. It was always, that's what we did a lot of times when we would go over to people's houses. We'd bring our big books of cards and we'd trade. And we would probably end up even after everything, spending 5 hours doing it. But so that's originally how I got into it, right? And then long hiatus. And then you started talking about it right around little before COVID, probably. Is that when you and Jason's? Yeah, little before.
Yeah, 2018 is kind of when I got back in.
Yeah. And so, you would tell stories and you start to remember those things and the nostalgia and like, oh, yeah, that was fun. Or I did have that card. And, it got to a point where I was like, I wonder where those are at. And you look through them. You don't really have anything. I didn't have anything of value really saved. But I had some of the cool cards. Like, I don't know if you remember that 90s set Electrified. There's like a green, there's a Charles Barkley. I had like a whole page of those when I was looking back. And those things, I was kind of like, man, this was cool. And then to your point, you made it before, it's kind of like, okay, well, I have my own money now. I guess I could go buy maybe a little bit nicer packs, or maybe I could buy one of those cards that I wanted before. So just started to dip my toe into it, and I would go buy a couple packs, and there's a local card shop around here. And then from there, it just snowballs, right? Then me and you go to a couple shows. I start to narrow in what I really like to collect. And I know we'll talk about it later. I enjoyed breaks and started to understand what those were. Um, so that kind of led to where we're at now of kind of having like you said, that 90s to early 2000s basketball is really what I like to collect. But I have a lot of other stuff that I like to collect and trade and do too. So that's been the evolution of, when we were little, the hiatus, and then how I got back to it.
So obviously, what I think is interesting, right? And this was cool when we went to the national together last year. I think I talked about it with Will on the show. Is that you and I went to the national, and it was sort of like two totally different worlds that we introduced the other person to. I mean, I was sitting there talking with all these old guys about boxing cards from the early 19th or early 20th and late 19th century, and my old vintage football guy who's in shorts no matter what time of year it is, no matter what show it is, he's there, who I've talked about on this channel before too. And then other times we go back in the other area with you with more of the modern stuff, the 90s basketball and the breakers and everything. And it was like just kind of taking each other through those different sides of the hobby. Like you said, like I think
Yeah.
through doing stuff like that and talking to you, I realized, holy cow, like this is really a large and diverse hobby, which I think is awesome. But my question is, so you've narrowed in on 90s basketball a bit. How'd you get there? Because obviously when both of us, I think, got back in, I mean, I remember some of the first times we started showing each other what we were picking up now, we were both all over the place. So how did you end up kind of zeroing back in on 90s basketball?
Uh, it, I think it just kind of happened a little bit organically with, like you said, I, I've always liked opening basketball better than anything else. I like opening football. Um, Never really loved opening baseball. I don't know why. I probably don't follow it enough. I don't know the prospects, and just never really was that into baseball. But it was always football and basketball. But basketball, even growing up, I don't know if it was because there's a more wide range of players, or they give you more people to collect. I think that intrigued me a little bit. But I mean, really started to collect, started to get stuff, and then I started when card prices were really high, right? So I would be able to buy a pack, open some stuff up, and I remember I sold like a Luka Doncic mosaic on fire insert for like someone bid it up to $70 on eBay. So I would be able to buy that and sell it, which you can't anymore. It's probably a $5 card. So sorry, whoever.
Yeah, that's fine for sure.
But and then through that, I was like, okay, well, I turned some stuff around, but I knew that's not really what I wanted to do. Like I didn't get into cards to make money or flip things around. But then I started to look back on what I did have in my collection, and I liked that electrified insert page. I liked, the sticky fingers. I had a sticky fingers Gary Payton from that 19, I think it was I have it here, 1994 top set. Um, and I really liked that. So I was like, man, I wonder what other inserts are out there. And what I really liked about it once I start getting into it is how wide of a variety there is. And it's not very expensive a lot of times, too. I have some of my favorite inserts that are $5 cards, but there are so many inserts from that 90s set. Now, that's probably why they're not all super valuable, but I just like collecting them. I like the diversity of it. I like the designs on a lot of them. I think they're cool. The Fleer metals, the ones that aren't even refractors or anything that, again, aren't worth that much. I like the different designs on there. So I think it was once I got back into it, and there's so many things you can go research and find. Hey, what's some cool insert sets that you can go buy? And you can buy really expensive one. You go try to find a Jambalaya insert set. One, you're not going to find it. Two, it's going to be $10,000 plus to be a good player in a PSA 1. But then there's also, I have that whole set of that 1994 top set, and most of them, besides the Jordan and a couple other ones, were like $2.50 on eBay. So I think that's what I like about it, the diversity in it. And I just like the players from that era too. Iverson, Shaq, Grant Hill, all those guys. Growing up watching them, I really like that piece of it too.
See, and that's what I feel like because we, like I said, we collected. We're both junk wax kids. We both bought, went into the card shop and bought the, old school packs of, whatever
Yeah,
Fleer Ultra and like '92 Fleer Ultra, like
well,
all those skybox, whatever it was that we could get our hands on. But I think it's a little bit different insofar as kind of when I came in, it was still late '80s, early '90s, and a lot of what drew me to football was Barry Sanders, right? Because we're both Lions fans.
yeah,
But by the time you started collecting 5.5 years later, it was kind of like Barry's career was winding down a bit, and you didn't have that same experience I did.
yeah,
But the guys at that time, you mentioned Iverson, Shaq, some other guys I know you're going to talk about later when we get into who you collect. But yeah, I feel like at that time, if you were just getting into collecting, I feel like I talked to a lot of people who gravitated toward basketball just because that's kind of where, you had a lot of those big names in that era. And I know, in my episode with Will and John, when we talked about '90s football, and they're both into '90s basketball as well. We talked about the creativity
yeah,
of that time, and that's kind of what I think you're hitting on too. Is there's
for
some
sure.
really cool stuff across the
Yeah,
board in the '90s.
really cool stuff that, I mean, I feel like I know a decent amount about 90s basketball inserts and cards. There'll still be stuff that I come across and I'm like, I've never even seen that set. It's like at that national card show, some guy had a really wide range of 90s inserts. And there were some, and again, they weren't crazy expensive unless it was a Jordan or something like that. But stuff that I had never even heard of before that he was like, yeah, these inserts, and you look them up, really popular inserts. So I feel like you said, there was so much creativity and there's so much out there. You can chase forever on these things.
Yeah, and I agree, and it's the same with football too. And so I think both of us that '90s draw is the nostalgia and the creativity, and like you said, just the inexpensiveness of
Yeah,
it. The fact that you can go out there and Gary Payton, you have that. What's that? Well, show that '90s, but you got the sticky fingers Payton right
yeah,
there.
yep.
Throw that one up there because this insert. Yeah, see, I love that insert. I
Yeah.
think there we go. That's a little bit better. Yeah, the sticky fingers Payton. Yeah, well, how much does that run?
I mean, you can get that for $4. If you pay more than $4, you probably pay too much.
See, that's ridiculous. And outside of who are the big players that do cost from that era? Other than Jordan, is there anybody else you're really going to pay top dollar
Jordan's
for?
going to cost a lot. Shaq's good stuff is you're gonna pay for it normally. Um, then you kind of get into Iverson. You can pay some. Penny Hardaway. Some of his cards you're going to pay some. Kevin Garnett, but really outside of Jordan and Shaq, maybe I'm missing somebody, but there's nobody really. I mean, the next one that comes that's going to cost a lot is Kobe, right? So I guess 99.
Okay.
So I mean that I count that. I count 90s into early 2000s. But the people who you're really going to pay for in that time period are going to be Shaq, Kobe, and Jordan. Everybody else is pretty reasonable. Even like that Iverson Chrome Refractor, his rookie. Yeah, if it's a PSA 10, you'll pay for it, but it's not crazy for what I think that card is. I mean, I think that's an unbelievable card.
Mhm. So you obviously mentioned I know Shaq and Jordan. I think every '90s collector I've talked to, or at least most of them who collect '90s basketball, Shaq and Jordan are always the first two names that come up for them.
Yep.
So who are some guys that you chase besides those two? Because I know that you're into both those. Actually, what's actually crazy about you, and I remember this from when we were kids. We grew up, in Michigan, and I grew up in the Bad Boys era, so obviously hardcore Pistons fan. He grows up and starts rooting for Jordan and the Bulls. Like actually as a kid starts rooting for Jordan and the Bulls. And I remember I wanted nothing to do with Jordan. I probably had some sweet Jordan cards that have been lost to time just because I did not want to collect
Yeah.
them. As a kid,
Yep.
I wanted nothing to do with them. So I'd trade them as quickly as I could get them. I probably traded some of them to you. You probably have them lying around somewhere or lost them or
Probably
whatever.
will.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I know Jordan was big, and I know you bought some sweet shacks too that you may end up showing some of later. But besides those two guys, who are some guys that you try to target from that era?
Yeah. So Grant Hill's one. I like Grant Hill. So
Mm.
I started rooting for. I don't know when the switch was. It was probably when Jordan retired, but
Yes, you were a Jordan fan more than a Bulls fan, if I remember.
right. And then I came to my senses, big Pistons fan, and then it came into my when I was junior high school was Ben Wallace, Rip Hamilton, all those guys. But anyway,
Mhm.
the another guy who I collect is I'll always look for Grant Hill. I mean, nostalgia, the teal jerseys. I love if I can find a card in a jersey
Mhm.
with him. He has some sweet cards. I mean, I think people forget about him more than they remember him. I mean, he's one of the best scorers to ever play, and he's really inexpensive. I was with you. I got a pop one of his. It was a second year, but a PSA 10 refractor. I paid like $60 for it. That's a Jordan, and
I remember
that's a
that.
$10,000 card, something crazy. So Grant Hill, mentioned him before, but Allen Iverson, definitely look for his stuff, and then some other little Penny Hardaway for sure. Love Penny Hardaway. He rivals anybody else for me to collect. I really like Penny. Um, and then two maybe a little bit further out. Kevin Garnett's not that odd, I don't think, but like KG, and then Sean Kemp for some reason. I love
Sean
Sean
Kemp.
Kemp.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, um, I have his rookie Fleer PSA 10, which is like a 30-cent card, but love that card. If I find a good Sean Kemp, and that's what's cool is Sean Kemp at that time was obviously an elite player, so
100%.
he has some sweet cards that I mean he was going to be in an insert set with all those other guys, with Jordan, with Penny, with Shaq. He was going to be one of those inserts. So he's got a lot of sweet cards that mimic those inserts of the other guys. It's just obviously a fraction of the price because he's not quite the name as the other guys anymore.
I mean, but he was when we were growing up. I mean, I'm sure, when Will and John see this, they're going to echo that too. And some of our, the channel viewers who are 90s basketball guys, it's like
Yeah,
Sean Kemp for what, about a 5 year period was one of those dudes. I mean, he made a couple first team All NBAs. I mean, what was it, 96 when the Sonics made the run to the final, him
yep.
and Gary
Gary
Payton. And
Payton on this
I
game,
mean,
and I mean his highlights. I mean his dunks. I mean,
yeah.
he was the man for a while, and he gets forgot about a lot. But yeah, I love because you'll see him, and the people who sell '90s cards at these shows or wherever, they're going to have Kemp too because they probably think of him the same way. So it's cool to see that.
I mean, and you mentioned Penny Hardaway, and I feel like looking back, I mean, again, people from that era are going to remember him because I mean he was a superstar.
For
Again,
sure.
probably even a shorter window than Kemp, maybe. But I want to say from what, like, he entered the league in, was it 94? But from like 94 to 97,
Yeah,
I
before he got
mean,
hurt.
he was,
Yeah. No, I mean
yeah, they had
he was
little he was there, everything, the commercials.
yeah, right. Little Penny and the shoes and um, yeah, I mean, he was. I mean, I remember growing up the pennies, and that was like the first shoe I remember. Obviously Jordans, but that's the first shoe I remember. Like you and your friends wanting was the penny, uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean, obviously injuries and stuff played a different role, but I mean, he listening to interviews and documentaries. Anybody who played in that era with him, they all say if he would have stayed healthy, he would have been right up there with anybody else.
And Grant Hill too. I mean, you put Penny and Grant Hill. I think you collect two of kind of the great what if players in NBA history because those guys both, if they don't get hurt.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, those are two of the best what if players probably, especially scoring wise. I mean, those two could score on anybody. And then I do like collecting Dennis Rodman too. I, from the Bad Boys era, just a unique person. And the Bulls, obviously, when I liked the Bulls, he was obviously a big piece of it. So, um, yeah, I definitely I'll pick up some good Rodman cards too. You'd be surprised. You'll pay for some Rodman in some places though. On some,
I would not be surprised because not at all. Rodman is, in a sense, he's a cultural icon, right? It's like
yeah,
sort of like I remember on one episode, Will and I talked about Mike Tyson. It's like, is Mike Tyson the greatest fighter of all time? No, he had a good peak, and he was certainly a better boxer than Rodman was a basketball player. But it's kind of the same effect, right?
sure,
In the hobby, it's not always about who's the best player. It's about who's popular,
sure.
right? And Rodman was, I mean, he was a guy everybody knows, Dennis Rodman, for better or worse.
Yeah, you go up to someone who doesn't know basketball, they're probably going to know Dennis Rodman and probably not know Penny Hardaway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, Rodman was as big as it got. I mean, he was on a team with Michael Jordan and probably only slightly less culturally significant for a period of time. I
Yeah.
mean, so yeah, so I'm not surprised by that at all.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I would say those are
I
guys.
was going to say, I think this thing that surprises me most in what you said is actually what you didn't say. Kobe's not on the list. I'm curious. Why not so much Kobe? Just yeah, I'm curious on
I don't
that.
know. I like Kobe. I have some of Kobe's cards. I've gone on and off on Kobe. I don't know. It's a similar. Now I collect Jordan. I like Jordan. I think I'd be kicked out of any conversation if I said I was a '90s basketball collector and didn't. Obviously, I collect Kobe, and I have some Kobe's that I really like and I display. Um, I don't know. I just feel like one his stuff that is really cool is going to cost more than I
Hmm.
think it is worth. Like his chrome refractor, like I'd rather pay for the Iverson chrome refractor rookie than pay
Hmm.
what that is, just because of the price points, and I don't value him that much differently. So I think he's overpriced. Um, and then I don't know. I also feel like it's everywhere. It's kind of like you've asked me about the Jordan 86 Fleer, right? Like, is that the grail card for an
Hmm.
collector? And sometimes I feel like I have to say yes, but if I'm honest, I've told you this before. I really don't care about owning that
Yeah.
card. It just doesn't excite me, and that's what some of the Kobe stuff just doesn't really excite me. Now, the jambalayas or some of his inserts are awesome, and I would own them in a second. But again, those are things that unless you're really willing to sink some money into it, they're probably outside of most people's price range.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think, yeah, you mentioned that Fleer Jordan, man. Will, I don't know if Will's going to edit that out or what. He is a huge, huge fan of that card.
And I yeah
But it's sort of to me like similar in football to a card which I do own, and that's the 65 tops Joe Namath rookie.
yeah
And hear me out. Obviously, Michael Jordan way more significant
sure
than Joe Namath as an athlete, and I'm not even close there. But just in terms of it being a card that's readily available, that is extremely pricey for what it is, and just kind of looking at it and saying, is this worth the cost, given just
yeah
how widely available it is?
yeah
I mean, I ended up coming down on yes for the Namath, but I understand both sides of that argument for a card like that, where it's iconic, but it's readily available and you can kind of, anybody can pick one up at any time. It's just, are you willing to pay for
right.
it?
And I'll own one at some point. I mean, I feel like I've got to. And I do like the card, so I will own one. And I've almost bought them before, and then honestly, the time that I was the closest, I was looking at three other insert cards, and I was like, I'd rather buy these three than this one, and I decided not to buy the Jordan.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to a lot. I've been close to pulling the trigger on some of them, and I'm just like, when I own this, am I gonna really enjoy it? I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe if
Yeah.
I actually own it and put it in the collection, I will. But I just haven't got to that point yet.
But I think that goes to a bigger point about collecting, right? Like, just it's said on all the channels all the time, but it's just always worth reiterating. Like, collect what you like. Like, I don't feel like you should feel pressured into owning an 86 Jordan. If that's not what you want,
Right?
don't get it. Like, get the inserts. Like,
Yeah.
because it is a lot of money, right? And it's always a balance between quality and quantity, and what are you willing to sacrifice?
Right.
Because you can't have it all unless you have an unlimited budget, or don't care if you end up divorced.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly. So
So,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's a good segue into, so I know in watching a lot of content around YouTube, not just on, this channel, but on others, a hot topic of conversation always seems to focus around breaks.
Mm.
I'm usually very peripheral to those conversations because I have never done a break, because it's worth noting that Nate is by far the luckier of the two of us. If we get a box, if we each get a box, he's going to be the one who hits, whatever rookie auto is big in that year, or whatever big insert. And I'm going to end up, the joke was a few years ago, and obviously, this didn't really pan out to be, anything special. But at the time, when we were both kind of buying more boxes than I think we are now, in 2021, we were both, when we'd buy football, you would get all of like the Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, all these big names, and I would always pull Tutu Atwell. I swear, I had 12 million numbered or auto Tutu Atwell
Tutu
cards.
Atwell.
If he had panned out, I would have been able to fund so much of my collection with Tutu Atwell.
Yeah.
He did not. Neither did Fields or Lawrence at the end of the day.
None of them did, but yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
But yeah, so since I have no luck, again, and my interest is really veered toward being more of like the 90s and vintage stuff. There's not a whole lot of contemporary players that I even go after now, but you have done a lot of breaks, and I think are a good example of, because I think sometimes breaks become synonymous, and this was my impression too before talking to you, synonymous with, just kind of the flipping side of the hobby, trying to make money, all that sort of thing. But I feel like what you've done has been kind of cool in terms of how you used it. So first, I just want to talk a little bit about that, how you got into breaks, your thoughts on them, and kind of how you've used some of the stuff you've hit, what you've hit, and how you've sort of used it to fund your collection.
Yeah. So, first of all, I've told you this. Breaks are not the best way to fund a collection, and it's not the best way to purchase cards. It's worse than buying packs, and buying packs is worse than if you like a card, just go buy it. Realistically, I could have probably bought exactly what I wanted number of times instead of getting into these breaks. But to your point, I do enjoy them, and so I got into it. So there's a local card shop around here, one of one in Strongsville, Ohio, where when I got back into it, that's where, really I just Googled, hey, what's the closest card shop? Went in. The guy who owns it, younger guy, younger staff. And I would go in there, got to know them. They started to say, hey, we do these breaks on Instagram. I didn't know what a break was. So every once in a while, if I were bored, I'd hop on, see what was going on. And at first I couldn't really follow even what was going on or how you got into it, or it seemed like so far away of being able to comprehend it. Then you start to watch it and you start to see what's going on. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And you can get into some breaks, like these breaks, you're taking a gamble, but you could throw in $10 and, who knows? You may hit nothing. You may hit something pretty cool. It wasn't super high end some of the times. But you'd hit, at the time, a LaMelo Ball insert or number, or which that didn't pan out. But at the time,
No, there was a time that mattered though.
And hit some Trevor Lawrence at the beginning. There were some cool inserts. Hit a couple Anthony Edwards early on that I got graded, and started to be like, okay, this thing's pretty cool. I'll set aside some of my card budget to, basically gamble here and see what it is. Because what I like about breaks, and I've gotten into some larger breaks, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to set aside some money, and I'm just going to take a shot here at, they're either opening some repacks, which most of the time I don't love where the repack thing is going, because I think they're getting so highly priced and it's so rare that a card that lines up with it. It doesn't bother me, but I do feel like it's preying on some people who are trying to hit the lottery. That's what I don't like about the break side of it.
Yeah.
Because they'll say, there's a $5,000 guarantee. Well, when was it a $5,000 card? And I think that if you're not careful, that's the next side. That's when people look at breaks. That's the little dirtier side of it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, just to interject slightly, I think so much of it from, again, what you've told me, and I have other friends, like I think I've said on this channel and others, at this point in life at 41, I have hobby friends that are 26 and I have hobby friends that are 76, right? Running the whole gamut. So I have other people I talk to that do breaks too. And it, my impression, and then just what I see floating around in the hobby community is, right, there is great
Yeah.
variation in the quality of human beings that do these
Yep.
things, right? There are certainly some people who, they're holding back cards, they're not fulfilling what their obligations are, they're not giving the cards people win, they're
Right.
false advertising. I think, when they're out there preying on, like, younger kids and things like that, there's obviously a line there where that's not okay. But I guess the point is kind of what you made me think about. Is this a problem of breaks as a concept, or breakers as human beings using something to be negative?
I
I
think
mean,
that's what it is. Because I think the break is so why I like breaks is I can go and here's the deal. I know that I could go maybe buy a box or a pack of these higher end cards, or something where I'm like, okay, I'm excited about maybe I could hit, whatever it is. And yeah, maybe I don't hit the high end, but people say, well, at least you get cards. Well, what am I going to do with a bunch of those base cards? Or if I get a autograph
right.
of, who knows, Eldrunas Elgaskis. Like, what am I going to do with his card, right?
How was that the first thing that popped into your
I don't
head?
know.
Is it Junis Elga? Where did that come from?
I don't know. That lets you know what kind of basketball players I.
That's extremely random.
But with the break, yeah, you might not hit something, but you have a chance of grabbing something really cool. I've got over in my case, I've got a Randy Moss downtown PSA 10 that I hit
Hmm.
in a break. That's one I'm going to keep. I really like that. I hit an SGA patch, flawless auto numbered to 10 that I probably should have held a little bit longer till he won the MVP this year.
Oh, you moved it before you won?
I did. I moved it before because I actually sold it to a guy to fund some other 90s collection, guy at the card shop who I know, who I had shown it to him before. I'll take stuff into there, and just kind of show him what I hit sometimes. But um, I hit one of those, sold it, and that funded other things. So to your point, what I put into the breaks, I'm willing to lose. I go in expecting, okay, I may not hit anything. I may, I do a lot of like random team breaks. I may get the Pelicans, and okay, well, there's not much I can really hit here. Maybe I get it lucky and get
No.
an AD rookie or something. But that's also what's kind of fun about it is some of the repacks and some of these,
Mhm.
whatever team you get, you could hit somebody pretty cool. And even if it's not worth a ton of money, I've added it to my collection in some places. So I mean, I've hit, I have a KD, Pinnacle, the triangle cards with his auto on it. That
Oh,
thing's a
I remember
card.
that.
Um, I hit this Kobe, which isn't super. Like I didn't make my money back, but it's a
It's a sick card, though.
showcase row one PSA 10. Didn't make my money back, but I'm like, that's a cool card that I'm glad to have in the
Yeah.
collection. So breaks to me they're a piece of the hobby that I think is fun. It's a little bit of a gamble. You get that little adrenaline rush, and then you can hit cool stuff, and sometimes it's out of the ordinary. Like I don't think I ever would have gone and bought a Randy Moss downtown PSA 10, but I hit it in the break, and I'm like, yeah, that's going in my collection for a long time. I have no need to move it. So it's not all about flipping them. I will turn around cards like if I don't care about the player and it's valuable, yeah, I'll try to find someone who's going to buy it, and that helps me go buy other things that I really like with it. But I have a Jameer Gibbs Gridiron Kings rookie over there, PSA 10. That again,
I know you have that because you traded to me.
yeah, yeah. Again, probably didn't make my money back on that break, but I had fun in the break, and I'm going to keep that card. So that's how I view breaks. I think they're, like you said, if you can find people, I would say like I wouldn't go just do it with random people. I know like on Whatnot, you can go all over the place. I would probably watch some of the
Hmm.
breaks, get a feel for what's going on, and then jump into it and see how it goes. But I think they're a fun thing to do. I think it gives you a little bit of that rush. It gives you an opportunity to maybe get cards that you wouldn't have gone and bought on your own. And then in some cases, if you hit big and you get lucky, which I have got lucky a decent amount of times, which means I should.
You got a couple.
I've got some cool cards that I've hit before, um, that I have turned around and been able to find someone who values those and wants to buy them, and I can go use the money to pick up an Iverson or a Shaq or a Jordan in some cases. At the shows, I brought 3 or 4 that I had hit, and that's what I turned into probably 2 of my favorite cards. That Jordan Scoring King, and then the Shaq that's Jam card, which is a little obscure, but um, I turned around and sold 2 of mine to dealers there to get the money to pay for those 2.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, the stuff you brought to the show was, I mean, that was it. It's highly liquid stuff. A lot of the stuff
But
you get from the breaks. So, and again, it's not like you're, trying to gamble and go out and then pay bills with it. It's like, okay, if I hit something, either you keep it, like you said, and I know you've kept some of that stuff, but also it's a good way to go out and try to fund other parts of your collection if that's your thing. I think you have to like or get something out of like the experience of it, right? Because part of it is your, like you're paying for the experience
yeah,
too. So
so I like
I thought that was
I like watching breaks is nerdy. Well, I don't have to worry about being a nerd on this show with you here. So,
no, no, you're in good company.
but I enjoy watching the breaks. So if you're going to be a person who is all or nothing, and if you don't hit a card, you're going to be pissed off. Breaks probably aren't the spot for you. But I do. I mean, I've seen some breaks where people hit some insane things, and it's cool to just see those cards getting pulled and see that go into somebody's PC. I mean, even if they turn around and flip it, I mean, geez, for somebody to hit some of those cards that I've seen live on those breaks, that's entertaining to me. So, I mean, that's a piece of it too. I enjoy the process. I enjoy watching the break. I enjoy, seeing other people hit some crazy things, which makes the whole experience enjoyable for me.
See, and it highlights again what different points we're coming from in the hobby. I have never watched Whatnot. I still don't really understand what it is, to be perfectly honest. I really don't.
It's a weird,
But I know that,
but yeah, it's when I first saw it, I was like, it can't be this easy to just download this app and then just send this money over, and now you're in a break with these people. But I met a couple. To your point, at that show we went to, the national, I saw a couple of people who I don't know them, but I've been in their breaks 15
Mhm.
times or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool to see them in person and get a chance to meet them. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of a cool piece of it too, where I think some of the people, like the old school card collectors, I think sometimes look at the breaks and just say, oh, that's just a money grab flip. It's so dirty. And yeah, there's pieces of it, like you mentioned, sure. But I also think it's kind of a cool piece where a lot of people are connected from all over and know each other and have a relationship and sell stuff between each other. And I think that's a cool piece of that, I guess, piece of the hobby there, that connects people in different ways too.
Well, and I think too, with being kind of on a little bit more on the vintage side of things myself, obviously, I think I think it's sort of tied to the perception that obviously breaks are focused on modern cards, and the perception that people who are into modern cards are mostly in it from an investment or flipping, or
Sure.
where it's more focused on money than the collecting. And I've just, for me, I've met enough people where that's not the case. Where even people that are in breaks and stuff, it's like, okay, well, there's a collecting component too for a lot of these people. And then again, you do have people where it's all about the investment side of things. And I don't know if you watch Return to Collecting, Darren on
I've
Return to
seen, yeah.
Collecting. he said something on an episode a couple of weeks ago that I thought was really good. He said something to the effect of, I don't understand why people sit there and watch YouTube content that pisses them off. Right? It's like if you don't like something, if it's not part of your hobby experience, just keep
Yeah,
going. Like, why would you sit there and watch? For example, Jeff Wilson, if he annoys you, just watch something else. It's like,
right.
so it's yeah, because there's a difference between some of these people out there where I do think on again the breaker side of things, there are some people that are just not good human beings.
Sure.
There's a difference between that and people that are just doing something that's not your thing. And if that's the case, it's like, well, move along, because to me that's still good for the hobby that we have something that's getting people into it if they're going in with the right attitude. Like you said, if you're the type of all or nothing person that's going in to hit the $1 million card, probably not a good idea. But if you're going in to have some fun, pick up some cards, and maybe hit something you can either PC or move to get some other cards you want, then if that's your thing, that's your thing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny too. There is because each time you hit it, you're googling comps, and I've hit some cards where I've told my wife, "Oh, I hit this card," and some I have been lucky enough to hit a couple multi-$1,000 cards, and she's like, "That's great. When can you sell it?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going to sell it. That's crazy." Did you see this card? This one, and so yeah, there's the money, and like you said, yeah, a lot of people are in there flipping, but I think there is a big chunk of people who, when they hit those cards, yeah, they're putting comps, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I made my money back." But well, yeah, if you sell it, that's a different story. But
Well, and that's why I try not to let our wives talk too much about what we do with our cards, because if she's mad at you for not selling, you sell 30 times more than I do. I remember a couple years ago, I don't know, one of my collector friends in Chicago, I don't think you met him. His name's Peter, and he's a big time guy where he collects a little, but he's mostly an investor flipper.
sure,
That's kind of his deal. And his wife was talking to my wife and was like, "Oh yeah, because she was like, she knew that he collected, and my wife was to her like, "Oh, how do you put up all this card stuff?" Just kind of joking around. And this guy's wife says, "Oh, well, he's selling a lot of these cards to pay for our basement to be finished, to help pay for that. So I'm for it." As soon as they leave the house, she looks at me. She's like, "Did you hear that? It's like he's selling cards to finish the basement." I'm like,
well,
I don't know what to say. Good for him.
basement if you
Like,
sell all your cards, then there's no point to have a finished.
that's what
There you go.
Exactly. Exactly. Anybody can have a finished basement. Not everybody can have, an extensive card collection. So that's really what makes all the difference in the world. You know what? He can have his finished basement. I don't even know why I have cards out here because this isn't my episode. But does he have this Indomitian Sue rookie patch auto that I'm sure is going to be worth millions of dollars someday?
I'm sure he doesn't. I probably doesn't.
I I brought this out just specifically because I was going to find a way to show an Indomitian Sue card because he retired yesterday. So I didn't know how I was going to do that, but there we go. I accomplished my goal.
Good entry point.
Right.
I didn't know.
Well, now that we're way up, what's
I
that?
didn't know he retired yesterday. I'm behind on news.
Yeah, he retired. I had a whole. I posted about it on IG today. It gave me something to talk about. But yeah, he was one of my all time favorites. You talk about guys who you look at and they may not be universally popular, but they have a special place for the sports. This is the team that were watching at a certain point in time, and they're part of your sports experience. Sue was that for me, man. I love Sue in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, that guy was great.
Not many defensive tackles who go out there and try to kick an extra point when all of our kickers were hurt. I don't remember. That was like 2011 or something
Right.
against the Jets. Do you remember that? He doinked it, but still.
Still, yeah, you don't see that very often. Yeah, that's funny. I forgot about that.
No.
Yeah, Sue's awesome.
But well, so I guess the tie-in here to any sort of relevance would be since we have now started showing cards. One thing that I am curious about, because I actually don't know the answer to this, so I'm curious to see what you pulled out here. I asked for 5 cards that you would say, at least as of today, right? Because this fluctuates all the time. That these are kind of the top 5 cards that you have in your collection. So I'm excited to see what you pulled out.
Yeah,
Either in order or no order, because I remember I always do an order, but some people can't put them in order. So however you want to do it.
let me sort through these here. Yep, we'll go through it, and I'm gonna backtrack because there obviously will be Jordan in here. So when I say, you know, Jordan's Jordan's, too much out there, obviously he's a big contributor. So I picked my five that right now I think are my favorite, and I think all for different reasons. So um, I'll go in backwards order. So I'll go starting.
All right.
So this Shaq Beam,
Oh,
that's probably five right there. Um, got this one a couple years ago. This is his rookie beam team. I love this set. You've got me some cards from this set, and
yes, I have. That's the 92 Stadium Club set, yeah?
92 Stadium Club, rookie year. I just think the design's awesome. Um, I've got a lot. The cool part about this set, it's a very iconic set. The Jordan in this set's, he's dunking. Really cool photo. Obviously, that costs money. The Shaq is probably the second in that set, I would say, behind the Jordan. But that design's awesome. I like the next year beam team, but not nearly as much as this one. I think that's probably when I look at a set, I think that's one of the coolest, top three coolest sets that I see. And the Shaq, I love the picture. I love the going above the rim to make a block.
Yeah.
I just think that's a really cool card that I got a while ago. That's one where it's a little off center. The one that I have, I'd probably look to get that graded at some point, or a graded version of it, because I really like that card. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I own that card as a kid. I'm sure I've told you that.
really,
I bought it at some, well, yeah, I bought it at some crappy card shop in Frankenmuth, Michigan for like $10. I have no idea what happened to it, but I wish I'd held on to it.
yeah. Should have held on to that one. That would have been a good catch at $10. But yeah, I love that card. Love that set. I know the Jordan's the most iconic in that, but I think that Shaq's my favorite one in that set. This one's a little unique. So that's an Allen Iverson. I know it's a little bit hard to see. This is actually
Yeah, I'll get
this is a redemption. This is his rookie card. This is a Topps redemption. So I looked into it. I actually got this in a break. And I looked into it when I got it, and I was like, what in the world is this? So they would have redemptions in this set for the slot of the place where the person was drafted. So you would get a redemption,
Oh, that's
and then later on, obviously, the draft would happen. After that, you could submit, and my history might be a little bit off, but that's how I understand it. After the draft happens, you submit the redemption, and that's what happens there. So it's a little bit of a refractor. I've still never seen this card anywhere else, and I've looked it up. It's not a crazy expensive card, but I think it's a very unique rookie card of somebody who I really like to collect in the hobby. So that's definitely one of my favorites, just because of the uniqueness of it. You talk about a lot of the stuff in the '90s being, you know, so generic or so widely available. I think that's probably my most unique card that I have, unless somebody tells me otherwise and I just haven't seen it. But um,
I don't know. I've never seen that. I actually hadn't heard that story before about that car, but I think too, the fact that it's Iverson, I feel like lost on maybe people that are a little bit younger is just how important and popular he was when he first came to the league.
yeah,
I think part of the reason maybe Kobe's stuff didn't get popular till a little bit later on because Iverson was the headliner of that draft. And I mean,
yeah,
that was for years. That was for 4 or 5, 6 years afterwards, even.
yeah. And I just watched a documentary. It's on Netflix. I mean, it's kind of a promo for Reebok, because I'll keep it short here. But Shaq basically bought Reebok basketball. He's trying to bring it back, and
Mhm.
he brought Iverson in to be his president of operations. But they went through the kind of the history there. Reebok, Iverson made Reebok. I mean, Iverson and Shaq, no one else was wearing Reebok shoes. And
Yeah, for
even
sure.
say Shaq shoes didn't really take off until, you think of the questions, you think of the zip ups in the front. I forgot what those were called. Um, think those were the answers. I mean, he had some crazy shoes that everybody wanted, and nobody wanted Reebok.
Oh, I had a pair of questions in sixth grade. I can tell you that. I went all the way to the Midland Mall to get
I
them.
bought a pair of questions 2 years ago because I saw them somewhere, and I was like, all right, yeah, I'm buying those. Um,
That's awesome. I didn't know
yeah,
that.
I mean, they're just, yeah, Iverson. I think culturally, you talk about Dennis Rodman being well known. I think he goes outside of basketball close to as much, not as much as Rodman, but everybody knows the clip of practice. Everybody who, whether they like
Yeah.
basketball or not, So yeah, that's I obviously like collecting Iverson, and I have other Iversons that are probably more valuable. I have his Chrome Refractor rookie, but that's the one that I think I
That's a cool
enjoy the
card.
most. So um, the next two are tough order. They're kind of tied, but this is Shaq. It's hard to tell on here, but this is what's called the hot numbers insert. Um, so this is what year is this? This is the 1995 Fleer hot numbers. So you can kind of see it's like 3D. It'll move a little bit.
Yeah. It comes through a bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, so this set I didn't know very much about until I got back into it. I never knew about it as a kid. And again, not a very expensive. This is a PSA 9. PSA 10s run a little bit more, but it's not a crazy expensive card. And I know it comes through a little bit through the camera there, but if you're looking at it here, I mean, this thing pops out. It's 3D. It kind of gives you a headache and makes you sick if you look at it.
Yeah, I can vouch. I've seen it in person. That is a sweet card. It's unique.
It's unique, and I really like that set. I you know, if you talk to classic collectors or maybe it's less valuable because it's so weird. I mean, they've never made cards like that really again, so there's probably a reason somewhere. Maybe it didn't go over well, but I think that set is really cool, and I like that. It's the Shack, obviously, and then this is the one that goes right along with it. I referenced this earlier. This is
Yeah.
it's Jam Shack card. So I got this at the National PSA 9. I've never seen this in person outside of that. I've seen it's a Schmucker's basically advertisement. It's kind of like the Dunks, like the Duncan cards.
Yeah.
You'll see
Okay.
the Kobe or the Jordan of or the Shaq of sometimes. This is just a Schmucker's card, and I don't know why I think it's so cool, but I've seen it before on video.
There's no way that's not Schmuckers. It's Smuckers. There's no CH in
That's
there. This is the best part about doing these things with your brother is if I had another guest, I couldn't correct him on that. But there's no way that's pronounced Schmuckers.
that's how I'm going to pronounce it, and it's actually like 5 miles away from where I live. Is the headquarters, so I'm going to go see how it's pronounced. And you're probably right, and I won't tell you that you're right. But I picked this up at the show. I don't know. I think this is just a really cool card. And obviously Shaq again, love collecting Shaq. And then
Yeah.
this
Was that the one that the guy made fun of me for last
yeah,
year? At the National for not knowing what it
yeah,
was?
yeah, just having no idea what it was. And we were in a big group of 90s people, and they all looked at you like you were crazy when you were like, oh, is that a cool card? They did not have time for you right there.
Well, one guy actually corrected me. He's like, "That's Jam, blah blah blah." And I showed him like I think I had an 1890 Mayo Cup plug Peter Jackson with me at the time. I just showed him like, "This is what I collect." And after that, he's like, "All right,
Everyone was like, okay,
fine.
one
You're
different.
clearly here with someone else."
And then the last one picked it up at the same show. This is the Jordan Scoring Kings. I mean, it's got to be at the top of my list. Um, I haven't got it graded. I know I need to just go ahead and get it graded. Don't know what it'll grade out,
Yes, you do.
but I just got to get it into a PSA slab. Again, it comes. Oh, you can kind of see it when it catches that light there. The lightning strikes in the back.
Yeah.
They kind of switch around. I mean, I think I talked about a couple other sets earlier, but that Scoring Kings set, I have the Shaq in it. I have basically the whole set. The Shaq's his rookie that I have in that too. I just think that's one of my favorite Jordan cards out there. I think the background, I think the design, I just love that card, and I was excited when I was able to pick it up. And that's where I flipped some other stuff around that was newer, and was able to get that
Yeah.
Shaq and that Jordan at the same place.
Yeah, I know. I remember that dealer was not exactly the most, didn't have the best people skills, but he had everything you wanted. So it was one of those cases. And I've had to do this too, where I've had to work with guys on stuff where it's like, man, I don't want to buy this card from you,
Yeah,
but
I
you
think
were
honestly, because
absolutely.
he gave it to me at a decent, fair price. I mean, I don't think it was really under or over. He was asking a lot more for it, but his booth started to get really busy, and I think eventually he was just like, all right, whatever. I've got bigger things to worry about, and just gave it to me at a fair price.
I just remember the look he shot me because I went over to another table and I looked at a 1935 Chico Bronco Nagurski, which is like the holy grail vintage football card. And, you know, an SGC one, I mean, it's gone up this year too. I mean, at this point, it's probably 15 grand for a one.
One,
And I came over and you asked me, like, did you get the Chico and Nagurski? And I'm like, nah, I'll just have to wait for mom and dad to go before I get that one. Just joking around. This guy shoots me a look. I'm like, joke,
yeah, yeah,
kidding.
that guy did
So, you know, he and I were on the same frequency with humor.
right. Oh man, and then I'll
But
give you a couple honorable mentions real quick, just two of them.
let's see it.
I know you like this one. This Giannis, his rookie Prism PSA 10. I got it at the same show actually. That was a fun show.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, National had everything, and you got some good
that
stuff.
original design, because 13 was the first year um, of Prism, right? Basketball. I think I'm right on that.
Yep.
Um,
Yes, you
but
are.
I think that original design, Giannis PSA 10, I think that's an awesome card. I like that one.
Yeah, I agree.
And then these two, again, not very valuable. You can pick them up pretty inexpensive. So that's Shaq and actually Grant Hill. These are called Silky Smooth cards. So you open them up,
Nice.
and that net actually it folds open. I haven't done them because I'm sure they're brittle, but I have a couple more of those cards. I think those are pretty cool designs it's an underrated set that you can pick up for not very much money, even the big players in that.
I remember seeing those in person. They are really cool. But yeah, that's funny that a lot of those you got at the National last year. But
I
those are
got those.
some sweet picks.
Yeah, I got those last two at the National too, so that was a better show than I thought it was, I guess.
Yeah.
But
No, man. Yeah, I like those are great picks, obviously, and yeah, no, I'm glad we finally got to sit down and do this. I feel like I've been trying to bug you to jump on here for a while, so it was
oh yeah,
good to finally do this and see some of the cards where I hadn't heard the stories behind a couple of those, so that was pretty cool to hear. Before we jump off, because I know I told Will and John I'd try to be more punctual this time because I always go over. But is there anything else to just throw out there at all that you got, or we good?
I mean, I appreciate you having me on, and this was fun. This is, we've talked about it for a long time, so it was fun to really kind of look and think about where my collecting's gone and how I got back into it, and it means I probably need to go chase a couple other things. But no, I mean, I think it's fun to watch you guys and what you talk about and hear the wide variety of what people collect, and I think that's what's so fun about this deal is everything else. Uh, this thing's just supposed to be fun, and hearing people talk about just collecting what they like and different stories behind everything. Like you said, I think the stories behind how you get a lot of these cards are probably the biggest piece of it. So appreciate you letting me come on and talk through it and go back and forth a little bit. And I'm going to find out if it's Schmuckers or Smuckers.
It is most certainly not Schmuckers. Absolutely not. No chance. I'll bet you one. I'll bet you that Giannis on that.
That's fair. I'm not going to take you up on that.
That's the one card he has. That and the Gibbs are the two cards you have that like those are the ones that I want.
For sure. But, yeah.
But all right, man. No, thanks for keeping on, man. This was a lot of fun. Good to see some cards, and always good to just chat about the hobby. So yeah, man. Thanks for coming on, and I guess till next time, everybody take care. All right, take it easy, man.
See ya.